How do you restore insulin sensitivity? We're going to talk about diet modifications first. The number one way is avoid carb rich meals. And by carb rich, I also mean meals that have a lot of sugar in them. What goes along with that is avoid excessive sugar. Number two. Number three, eat foods that are low on the glycemic index. These are going to be less likely to spike your blood sugar, which is less likely to result in a huge influx of insulin into your system. To restore insulin sensitivity, your goal is to reduce your insulin levels as much as possible. And what this is going to do is help make your cells more sensitive to insulin. It's kind of like when you're in a rock concert, right? You can't hear the person next to you. And as long as you're in that environment, the person has to scream at you louder and louder and louder for you to actually be able to hear. So what you have to do is move out of that environment in order for your hearing to start to come back. That's kind of the easiest way to explain it. And it's the same thing if we feed our bodies foods that are way high on the glycemic index, foods that are, meals that are super rich in carbs and meals that contain tons of sugar, then we can't hear insulin. Our body cells can't hear insulin, and so they don't respond. And that means they don't uptake glucose properly from our bloodstream. So there's a lot of debate about timing of meals. I'm a huge fan, and this is after having tried the full gambit here. I was eating according to Ayurveda, which is 3 times a day, and that's it. And I tended to overeat. Back to what I prefer to eat, which is eat when I'm hungry, which is about every 3 to 4 hours. There's a lot, you'll hear things across the gambit here. I think you need to work with your body. I'm very convinced that each and every one of us is different, constitutionally speaking. And you may be like me where you prefer to eat every 3 to 4 hours. Like that feels good. That's feeding your body when your body is asking for food. You may be one of these people who only need to eat twice a day. And, that's just kind of how you've always been. That's what you prefer. Whatever it looks like for you, you do you on the timing of the food. I think the frequency of meals is less important than what you're eating at these meals. Now, the two most important meal times of the day are when you wake up, what you have to break your fast, and then your very last meal of the day. Ideally, you don't want to eat when within 3 hours of bedtime. If you need a snack closer to bedtime than that, then really try to avoid any foods that are going to spike your blood sugar. So if you need a snack, kind of opt for something that is protein rich, something that is protein and fat rich. So something like canned tuna, nuts or nut butter, unsweetened yogurt. I'm a huge fan of dairy-based yogurt. There's a lot of debate about how dairy impacts your insulin levels. I've done quite a bit of research on that and haven't found anything that I feel conclusive yet. However, just know that it's one of about 10 things I'm currently researching. I struggle to cut dairy out of my diet because I tend to get very hungry when I don't have dairy in my diet. I haven't quite figured out what nutrient it is because I supplement with quite a bit of iodine anyways. So I haven't quite figured out what it is that about dairy that I crave, but there's something in dairy that I crave. Milk. So like a turmeric milk latte with cinnamon, cardamom, no added sweetener makes for an excellent before bedtime snack. We've already talked about, when you eat smaller meals, you're less likely to overeat. Portions. There are many nutritionists who speak about how to eat when you have PCOS. And here's the thing, like you may or may not have PCOS and still have disrupted blood sugar metabolism. I know for the first over a year after I stopped hormonal birth control, I didn't see anything in my cycle to even indicate PCOS. And it was kind of randomly that I happened to have a cycle that was consistent with PCOS. And that's really what got my wheels turning about maybe, you know, something to do with an underlying root cause of PCOS also having to do with the UTI symptoms I was experiencing. So regardless of whether you have PCOS or not, when you're dealing with recurrent UTIs and or interstitial cystitis, then the underlying cause for both is unbalanced blood sugar regulation. Most PCOS nutritionists recommend that half, so 50% of your plate, be non-starchy veggies. So this would be things like salad, things like broccoli, cucumbers. In other words, steer clear of kind of the more root vegetables like the carrots and the beets and the sweet potatoes and whatnot. 1/4 of your plate be proteins, so about 25% of your plate be proteins. It could actually be a little bit more than, 25% of your plate being proteins. And then the rest of your plate, so a slice of pie of your plate, maybe like this much being carbs. And I don't mean filling that with a slice of pie, but just if we're thinking about a plate being being a circle, and about this much of your plate being carbs, up to maybe this much, but even that's getting a little far. And you want to stick with the low glycemic ones. Incorporate insulin lowering herbs and teas into your day. So I am a green tea fiend. When I was actively struggling with UTIs, I noticed that on days when I drank more tea, symptoms were a little bit better. Like I really started putting 2 and 2 together on that. Per the Tea Spot, if you've been around a hot minute, the Tea Spot is my favorite brand of tea. And I love Maria Uspinski over at the Tea Spot. I've actually read her book, and she recommends up to 5 cups a day as being safe, based on a lot of research that she did in writing that book. 2, cinnamon. So cinnamon is well known for its ability to improve insulin sensitivity. Liberally use cinnamon in your dishes, or make a cup of cinnamon tea. Fenugreek. Chew a few fenugreek seeds after each meal. One caution with fenugreek, it's highly estrogenic. This may actually be why it helps improve insulin sensitivity. I'm not entirely sure, but fenugreek it's an Ayurvedic herb. It's one that is known to improve insulin sensitivity. Cardamom is another one. So use a half teaspoon of powdered cardamom in a glass of warm milk, or crack open a fresh cardamom pod and infuse that in your cup. You can infuse it in milk, you can infuse it in water. You can just eat cardamom pods after a meal, like eat or chew on cardamom pods and eat the seeds after a meal, then spit out the pod. Mint. I am totally infatuated with mint right now. It's kind of a new, I guess it's like a summertime discovery for me. Just because it was an impulse buy for a little mint plant that I stuck in a pot and have been enjoying over the summer. I'm actually very surprised at how well mint works, at least for me. I feel like I can definitely tell a difference when I chew a couple of mint leaves after a meal, and how I feel and how quickly my appetite is to return. Because this is one of the things with insulin resistance. I feel like you start to, you feel like your appetite is sluggish. And it's because your glucose levels stay elevated for too long after a meal. This chai tea latte recipe is available for you to download. It's available in the resources section of this program, so you're able to download it there, and feel free to substitute with any other chai tea latte. This particular one is one you're able to make at home from scratch. It contains no added sugars or sweeteners. Speaking of that chai tea latte, before we move on from here, ginger is another great herb for improving insulin sensitivity that I didn't list in the content, but it is in that chai tea recipe. Weightlifting. Now, yeah, there's a reason why I chose this picture. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in. It doesn't matter what kind of clothes you're wearing. You can do weightlifting whenever. As a matter of fact, for me, when I go into the day job, there's an on-site gym. I will go down in my work clothes and lift some weights for about 10 to 25 minutes, depending on what my schedule looks like for that day. You can break it up. It doesn't have to be all at once. 5 minutes is better than no minutes. The weightlifting ties into the gluconeogenesis part of the conversation as well, because once your body stores glucose, again, glucose, carbs, sugar, the way to get that stored glucose back out of your cells is through gluconeogenesis. And this, again, is the act of releasing glucose. Glucose equals energy back into your body. Your liver, kidneys, and skeletal muscles are all capable of gluconeogenesis. So the more muscle that you have, the better able your body is to provide itself with glucose when it's needed. Also, increased skeletal muscle mass increases insulin sensitivity. Get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. So once you ensure you're getting sufficient rest, the next steps are to eliminate light pollution from your bedroom while also allowing natural light in. And if you figure out how to do this, please let me know. I actively struggle with this because I have neighbors that insist on keeping their outside lights on throughout the night for reasons I do not understand. So do the best you can here. I usually opt for falling asleep with a soft covering over my eyes, and I'll toss it at some point during the night. And then I wake up naturally to light that's filtering through the blinds if the alarm clock doesn't wake me up first. Sleep's important for about a million reasons. It helps combat inflammation. Inflammation is oftentimes linked with insulin resistance. And is a huge trigger for high blood sugar levels as well. So restoring your natural circadian rhythm supports natural hormonal balance of all of the hormones within your body. And it does this from cortisol to sex hormones, and even insulin is impacted by your circadian rhythm. So consistently getting 7 hours of sleep, at least 7 hours of sleep at night, sticking to a consistent sleep routine, getting out into daylight in the morning when you wake up, like all of that is important to help bring insulin levels back in line. Now we're going to move over and talk about how to improve gluconeogenesis in your body. So we're going to stop here, record that module separately. So be sure to check it out because there are some additional diet and lifestyle and supplement recommendations that we didn't talk about here.